welcome to the first episode of the Development Needed podcast. I'm Swagasaur70. Joining me are Yellowsaur and Majin BXR. Our fourth Hyperize is unable to join us tonight. So, what are we trying to do tonight? What are we doing? Tonight is the culmination of a lot of ideas and a lot of thinking that we've done for about 2 years, or about a year and a half, trying to get something getting to going together so we can get some sort of presence on the internet, so we can just show people who we are and what we like to do. So what we're going to try to do is sit, talk around, basically make idiots of ourselves in front of complete strangers on the internet. So once again, welcome. To start off, I'd like for everybody to introduce themselves. Yellowsaur, if you want to start.
Okay, hello, I'm Yellowsaur, as you said. We're really excited to do this cast. Hopefully we're going to learn some stuff in this process, also teach you guys some stuff you've not learned. Hopefully these things that we start out with will be things you guys have either not heard of, or you're going to be hearing things about them that you will be learning now. We were really excited to the cast. Unfortunately, some of my friends watching knew we tried to do this yesterday, but we tried to wait on Hyperize, but he's got some work ties up and everything. So we're really excited to the cast. I know that these two guys are excited as well. So hopefully we're here for the long run and can teach you guys something while we learn as well.
Yep, and I'm Majin BXR, and thank you all for tuning in. And we've been trying to get this going for a long time, like Swagasaur said. So hopefully y'all enjoy it and like our topics and our discussions.
And again, I'm Swagasaur70, and what we're going to do for the first 10 minutes or so, we're just going to try to get in and tell you all a little bit about ourselves, what we do, what we like to do as far as gaming is concerned. So I'll start off. I'm actually a physics and chemistry teacher in high school. Wanted to be a teacher my entire life, so I finally get to do that. Also, I'm a huge nerd, so I'm also getting to do this, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Okay, well, touch on the base on that. I'm Yellowsaur. I went to college for a bit. Was a psychology major. Things didn't turn out the well, so right now I'm just an inside salesperson, selling restaurant equipment. It's a great job. I love it. I really love what I do. And then, like he said, I'm a tremendous nerd. Played games since I was 5, whether it be between PC, Xbox, Nintendo. I've played almost all of it, so I could really touch base on about everything that we really try to cover.
And yeah, I went to college too. I graduated in December. I'm an accountant, and I'm a big nerd. I've been a big nerd since I was like 12 years old. So big World of Warcraft and all that stuff. So a lot of gaming knowledge.
So, and Majin BXR just kind of touched on the next topic to introduce ourselves, the kind of games that we like to play. I basically play anything, whether it's a casual game on the phone, a little bit of Call of Duty, typically only the Infinity Ward stuff because I hate Treyarch. But I'm a huge nerd. I like puzzle games. I like sports games. I like action games. Probably the game that I'm playing the most right now is Destiny. And that's just because I'm grinding, trying to get ready for September. But now I can kind of pull back from that, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, I guess I'll go next. Started out, Mario Kart 64 and Star Fox 64. You can't really go wrong with those. Went from basically those to playing Blitz 2000. So I touched everywhere from racing games, you could say, to sports games. Now, basically, I moved from game to game. I played World of Warcraft for a couple years, 2.5 or so. I did play with Majin, and didn't get the chance to play with Swagasaur. He quit before I got on. But right now I'm more on the Mortal Kombat, Destiny, Battlefield type road. Once I get a game, I'll play it. If I don't like it, it's gone. So I only have 3 games right now for my Xbox One. Mortal Kombat, Destiny, and Battlefield 4 being those. So I had a Wii U, trying to get a PS4 just for some of the exclusives like The Last of Us, but had a Wii U solely for Smash and Mario Kart. So there's no real in between for what I play. Broad spectrum. So
All right. Well, my gaming career started probably around Halo 2 when I first got Xbox Live. So I played a lot of Halo 2 and Gears of War and a lot of shooter games. So I took the path of PC games when I was around 14 and started playing World of Warcraft and RuneScape. And I took on the more PvE route of things. And probably about 3.5 years ago, I started playing PvP mostly, and I got a couple Gladiator titles, Rank 1 titles, and now I tried to switch back to shooter games in the fall of last year, and I just couldn't really get back into it. It just wasn't the same feeling, so I joined back on WoW, and that's where I'm at now. So
And just tonight's going to be a little bit of a taste of what we're trying to cover. Again, trying to establish what we want to do with this, really. So eventually, we want to cover things from games to movies, just a lot of stuff that interests us because this is ours. We brought this into being. That's what we want to cover. But tonight, just a quick rundown. We're going to talk a little bit about early access and indie games. Going to touch on the World of Warcraft movie, and just for fun, we're going to talk a little bit about the Windows 10 update and the new Xbox One update, bringing backwards compatibility to the current gen for the first time. So, if you all have anything that you want to add, go ahead.
sounds good.
Well, I'll kind of touch on what he said. The name of the cast, if you guys haven't noticed, is Development Needed Cast. We decided, we talked for a week and a half trying to come up with some sort of name that kind of had meaning to us that you guys could also play into as well. We ended up going with Development Needed Cast because, like he said, we're trying this out. We're figuring out, where we are as a cast, where you guys want us to be, what you'd rather us talk about, what you'd rather us not talk about. So we named it that just because of the sole fact that we're just testing this out and seeing what works better for you guys, what can get us more viewers, what can really improve us and teach us as well in this whole journey.
Yeah, like they said, like this is we're gonna try to make it a community-based stream and try to get the viewers interactive. And once we get a good follower base and stuff, we do like subscriber giveaways, and we do like the community picks the topic that we talk about and things like that. Just try to get y'all involved that we can talk and we can discuss with chat and things like that. So
And finally, as far as introductory stuff goes, for as far as gaming goes, I'm mostly Xbox One. I'm console gaming. I've played on consoles since the NES and Super Nintendo, so I've been a console gamer my entire life. With some of the things that I like to do now, uh, I've picked up the PC just a little bit, but mostly it's for indie stuff and SimCity every once in a while. It's not like the major AAA titles. It's not the MMOs and that kind of stuff.
Yep, and where he said, I guess with that, like that's a majority what I play as a console. I no longer actually have a computer. I got rid of it after college. Um, Whenever I played that, I mean, you probably know, I would bring my laptop to Coach Lemon's room and I'd play Fallout New Vegas in there because he really didn't want me to do anything. So um, that's the only real things I did on there. What I played like a couple games on there, World of Warcraft, Fallout, things that I could play that I already knew. That were just fun to kind of take up the spare time, or where I could play where I didn't have a console or a TV in front of me.
yeah, I'm the same way. Just PC nowadays. I just try to take a more casual route towards video games, not as serious anymore. Where I'm working, and it's you don't want to come home and spend all your time on video games. But still, I like to know what's going on in the community and things like that. So, on to you, Steve.
So with that, kind of wraps up the get to know you time. If you do have any questions, drop them in the chat. We'll probably cover them at the last because we've kind of got this set up. We're trying to do a little wrap up towards the end, but like we said, or like I said, we're going to go ahead and get started on our topics. And the first one tonight is going to be like early access and indie games. And the first thing that I think of when I think of early access is all this stuff on Steam Greenlight, a lot of stuff on Kickstarter, and how to me it's almost replaced the bundled beta with certain games. Like Halo 3 beta came bundled with what was it,
Crackdown.
Majin?
Crackdown.
Crackdown.
Yep.
The Halo 3 beta came bundled with that. And that was the main way that you got to play new games for a long time. And I just think that that's kind of fallen by the wayside because there's so much early access. There's so much uh, you pay us and we'll develop the game as you're playing it. And what are, how do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about the early access versus having a beta that's kind of like consolidated and they know what they're wanting to do with it versus this early access that can go anywhere?
Well, whenever I think of it too, they first started, like you said, with the Halo 3 coming from Crackdown. They've not made it a big thing. They do kind of release these things with that. For example, the most recent ones I can really think of, let's see, they went to you being able to get the Halo 5 beta updated. You could sign up for, the Gears of War remastered beta. They're very small betas. They're you could tell that they're looking for development with these things. I did play the Gears beta quite often. Actually, it was one of my favorite games on the 360. I went through the Gears beta and it was only a simple 4-map rotation, maybe even 3, that they moved through. The rotation was pretty predictable. There was only the simple 4-on-4, and there was one game type. Um, they did do a very good job of remastering these things, and it is very fun to be able to play these betas, especially nowadays with all these betas that are actually coming out. Our 4 games that we both played on, 360s. Being able to play these games before is a great thing because you can really look at it. But whenever I play these games, it's very easy for me to notice flaws with the game that they are yet to iron out, and that's one thing that I really look at and do put the input in, because that is something that could get in the way in the future for a lot of gamers, and it really does, I guess, irk me whenever there's simple little problems that keep me from being able to do the things you should be able to do in that game.
Yeah, I agree. I like the way betas were set up, like back in the day, I guess you could say. Right when Xbox Live came out, like you have to buy another game to start to play the beta on one. But the big thing for me was how they didn't release so much content back then as they do now. I feel like they try to release so much content in their beta to try to give you like a feel of this is how the game's going to be, like no matter what, and you would just flow into it from there. Like back in the Halo 3 beta and stuff, like you got to play one map, and it was like Team Slayer. So you got the gist of the game through that, but they're not going to let you experience like what's going to go on the story, what's going to go on here and there. It's the same for like trailers too. They release too much in the trailer, like too much information goes out nowadays of what the game's going to be like, how it's going to flow through. This is what's going to happen. This is what we plan to happen in this patch that comes out like 6 months from now. We've already got it planned out. So back in the day, the betas were just beta. Now they're like a polished game when they come out, in my opinion. So
Well, I was actually going to ask. I actually didn't get a chance to play the Destiny beta because my internet was like a turd sandwich at the time. But do you feel like, and I know they went through and made a lot of changes, whether it be dialogue, making Peter Dinklage come back and re-record a lot of his lines, or it be just some of the way the game handled. Did you two notice any difference to where the way it handled, or anything like that? Like anything major?
Well, they whenever they did the beta, Seth played it a lot earlier than I did, and I know that they released updates throughout it. But with the Destiny beta, there was a level cap at 8, which really didn't give you the option of really using, blues, which, be the rare items. You didn't get exotics, you didn't get legendaries. You really didn't get a feel for what it's really like to be that top level and really not running into anything that you cannot handle. Whenever you're level 8, you got the simple Earth missions and the Moon mission, or a couple of them, which I feel as though they didn't change the missions really any. So whenever I actually got the game and was going from level 1 to 8, I was basically just redoing what I already did on the beta, which they want to give you a taste of what the campaign is going to be like too, but it kind of goes back to what Seth said. You don't want to give too much about the game. Like, it would have been okay if they would have done like 2 missions and had like a max level like 4 or 5 and let you do Crucible.
Mhm.
But with them really giving you unrestricted access to these missions, Crucible, and everything like that, it was kind of it was rinse, wash, and repeat like you get with some games nowadays where it's the same thing over and over again. Seth, power level and a warrior and WoW, or anything else of that matter. It's basically you do the same quest line and you go to the same areas you do in all of them, and it's rinse, wash, and repeat over and over again, and that just it kills me. I didn't level many characters in WoW, and it took me forever to do the 3 in Destiny just because of that reason.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Right,
feel
and
the same way.
I just got done leveling my final character in Destiny because it is so grindy, and doing those first missions is just so unbearable to me. What about the thought? A lot of these early access games, and most of these are on PC instead of coming out on like console. Even though there are 2 early access games currently on console, The Long Dark and there's something else, and I can't remember the name of it. But does it kind of strike you as odd, or like you're doing the developer's job if they hand you a unfinished game and said, "Hey, play this.
Mhm.
Tell us what we need to do to finish this game."
I'll let Seth touch on that because that's PC.
Well, it's kind of a hard topic in a way because like there's so much diversification that can happen within that topic. Like a lot of unfinished games are coming out, and you do see them like off Steam, like DayZ for example, and all those like that game's been in alpha for who knows when, and it just keeps getting passed along and along for someone to finish the game because I know it's went through a different, whole different developing crew twice to finish the
Right.
game, and they do it at a lower price, but I think a lot of it involves like if they do it on the console, they got to dedicate their server or their graphics to meet that console, so it makes them spend a lot more money. So doing indie games through Steam is probably the best route for a lot of startup companies. And if they get their game right, like what is it, Terraria, just a simple game, a little simple indie game, has become so successful. So I don't know if that
Uh,
Because
kind
if
of
you think
answers it,
when
but I don't know.
Yeah, because if you think like whenever they're putting it on a console, it doesn't really give you that option of here's the alpha that we're playing on the PC. Now tell us what's wrong with it. We'll update it.
Yeah.
If they release a beta, you get like one release of a beta on a console, and then after that, they're expecting you to have the game done. So there's no real going back, starting over, passing it to a new company, unless you're really planning on, canceling the game. But if you're at the point of releasing a beta, you've already come across everything that you need to getting the game ready for the console.
Yeah.
So I feel as though whenever you're doing it on PC, it is an easier way to get started because there's so many ways that you can just go back and recover issues that you're having that are major flaws that you can't release on a console as an alpha or beta because if you do, it'll be catastrophic for both you, your company, and the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, another early access indie game that comes to mind is Minecraft, and it's freaking huge at this point. Because if you think when Minecraft first hit it big, they were in alpha, and it was what $15 to play the alpha, and they just kept adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff, and now they're on phones, they're on consoles, they're nearly on every console except for the Wii U. But it's do you feel like that is something that led all these other developers to say, "Hey, we need to start doing early access because Minecraft is such a hit"?
Mhm. I agree. And that touch base is back on my DayZ, what I was talking about. All right, back in 2012, DayZ Alpha came out, vanilla DayZ, like the most brokenest game you've ever seen in your life. Well, a year later, it's still in alpha.
Yeah.
A year later, still in beta. So that's one of those things that I'm talking about. Like consoles, I feel like they're polishing their games too much when they release a beta for early access. But PCs, you can throw your most brokenest thing out there, like Steven was talking about for indie games, and
Right.
just let the community drive it. That testing, I guess you could say. I don't know. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things like you touched on. I mean, you can leave these games in alpha because I mean, whenever you play DayZ, I mean, when you're playing that alpha, you can't sit there and tell me it wasn't fun, whether it be broken or just in such a bad state as it is. It's really difficult to play. I mean, whenever you're playing these games, when you're looking for indie games, you're not looking for a game that you can sit there and play, coming home and putting a good 3 or 4 hours into. Like, there was times when I would not go to school when I was a senior and be like, I'm sick or I'm not feeling good, and I would just come home and play like 6 straight hours of World of Warcraft because I was grinding. Whenever you find like an indie game or something like that, you're not going out and looking for a game that you can put that amount of time in. You're looking for one that you can occupy time with. It's a filler. It's
Right.
not a main point. It's something you can find and say, I'm not going to class for the next hour or so. I'm gonna go and play Minecraft and finish building my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, a lot of people have kind of hit it big by just playing Minecraft more or less professionally. Uh,
Hmm.
that's not something that you would think would come about from an early access game. You wouldn't think that this thing that comes out and is an alpha and these people are playing it with whatever bugs were in there, whatever glitches would be in there, and like the sheer lack of content in the original alpha, you would think that people wouldn't be able to pick this up and say, "Hey, I'm going to spend this many hours doing this."
Hmm.
Kind of like you said, Eric. It's not something that you would think would be such a time sink.
Hmm.
It's not something that you think you could pour hours into,
Right.
and for that reason, I actually really like indie games because it gives us stuff that's not Call of Duty, Halo, World of Warcraft. It allows us to see games that are different and are kind of out there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's
because I
one of
mean,
the reasons I like it.
you can get on Minecraft and you can play Minecraft. I can put maybe a solid 2 hours into it before it's the point where I'm just done. Like I can't do anything else. It's so dry I can't do anything with it. And that's the same way, smaller apps, which, like you said, Agorio is one game that came out that not many people have heard about, that a lot of people are now playing, and I know that a couple people, I believe, watching this stream play it as well. So, I mean, it's a smaller
Right.
game. Not a lot of people have heard about it, but, 5 people start playing it and enjoying it
Hmm.
for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, and it branches out because now they're trying to convince me to play it. I sit there and watch some of my friends play it at a table while they're waiting to get in another game of Magic. So, I mean, it's one of those things that you don't have to put a lot of time into. It's fun in short periods, so you
Right.
don't get tired of it. It doesn't become dry.
Right. That's my feel on an indie game. My feel on an indie game is about how fun you can make it be in the first 2 to 3 hours that you're playing it. You know what I mean? So like, say
Hmm.
you got Rocket League and you've got DayZ and you've got H1Z1 and things like that. These long MMOs and console games that come out, it's a long journey. You're supposed to put this many hours, you're supposed to put like what, 360 hours in this game to be good. They make these indie games, 5, $10, $20. It's so much fun for the 2 or 3 hours that you play it because you can jump right in and have a burst of fun. And so that's the main reason I think indie games stand out.
Well, last little topic in the indie game thing. How do you feel about people? And I realize that again, anytime you play an indie game that is especially that is early access, you're basically paying for an unfinished product.
Hmm.
How do you guys feel about? Because I've actually done this for a couple games that I have now come out, and I've had quite a bit of fun with them. I haven't told many people about them because they're kind of below the radar. But how do you feel about people going on places like Kickstarter or Indiegogo and funding these indie games for startups that really can't secure the money any other way?
Well, with those, I don't really see a problem with it. I mean, if the person doesn't have the startup funds that they really need to get a game to the level where they can release as an indie game where we can find it and and spread the word about it. I mean, I understand completely in that case. Now, when I go on these places and I do see Kickstarter people like, coming up with games, which now Kickstarter basically came out with Oculus Rift. I mean, Oculus Rift was something that came from Kickstarter and now it's being moved to where Sony's getting one for the PlayStation 4. I mean, it was a huge thing. Now, that's not a very common thing to happen. But whenever I'm on there, it's something that's very selective. It's a very risky thing to do because if you put $5 or $10 into it, I mean, you are not committing that money to it, but you're also not. They're not committing that they're going to get done with it. If something does come up to where they run into a brick wall where they can't get through, and they don't have the funds to find someone to help them through it, I mean, it's going to put that game on a stomp, and we're never going to see that game.
Hmm.
So it's really hard for me to get excited for games that require funding like that because there's never a for sure saying we're going to get this game for sure on this date, or you're going to get a beta on this date, you're going to get cover art for it on this date, and you're going to get a trailer at this date.
Yeah.
So there's no real stability in that, and it's a little risky, which I know that $5 or $10 here or there is not a big deal, but I'd rather, if I get excited about a game, I'd rather know for sure I'm going to get that game.
Right.
Right. Right, and that's some of the protection you're not going to find in indie games, period. So I know I keep referring back to
Sure.
DayZ, but that's how it went. It stayed in alpha for 2 years. They finally released the standalone for it, and then the developers quit because the game was so broken. It took so long to make the game. It required so much money. So it just is how it is, and some other company took over DayZ, but it's just bad now because lack of funding. Okay, so I think we should move on to our next topic, and we're going
All
to
right.
talk about the World of Warcraft movie. So, big hits coming on this one. So, this is Blizzard's
I know
image.
nothing.
This is Blizzard's image right here for
Hmm.
what 20 something years that they've been doing Warcraft lore. So, uh, I'm going to start off by talking about how close do you think this movie will follow the lore? Because, in a lot of movies, the lore isn't like Lord of the Rings or uh, Harry Potter or something. There's always just a little twist within it that they always
Right.
change. So, do you think they'll throw this twist at it? Like, where's the opportunity to throw the twist? So, start off, Eric.
Um, See, I've not played as long as you, so I'm not huge. I can't talk about it for hours about the lore. Now, just talking on that just as a general reference with other movies, you do have some twists that get put in there. Now, with that occurring, it's kind of difficult to really tell where they're going to put a twist in and if they do, but I don't in my own opinion, I don't think it's very good to put this twist in. If you think about it, this World of Warcraft movie is going to come out. You're not going to have a general person that's like, oh, the Avengers. I've never really read about Marvel, but I'm going to, watch this movie because all my friends think it's going to be good. This World of Warcraft movie is going to be very specific to whether it be Blizzard fans or World of Warcraft fans. Um, if I go to this movie and I see something in there that is completely off of what I know happens, it's going to upset me a lot because I did spend time doing it. I know what things occur during the story and the lore of it. So if they put a twist in and something is cut out or something is redirected around, it really stops the movie um, in a general sense because it keeps me from really being able to get into it like I know.
Yeah, like I'm the same way. Like I never really read the Lord of the Rings books, but like if I had read them and the movie was completely different, I wouldn't be that interested in it. Like I've played WoW since almost it came out. So any
Mhm.
little twist that's gonna be off, I'm gonna know about it. So, and I've already seen in some of the footage, they seem to be centralizing on Thrall and I forgot her name, or it's not Thrall. It's Thrall. Doomhammer, I believe.
Duratan and
Doomhammer is they're doing it in the pre stage of Azeroth, or before the
mhm.
orcs came into the invaded Azeroth. From what's been released so far, so it seems like it's going to follow more around the Horde leaders, or not necessarily the Horde leaders. It's not might not include Black Hand, Grommash, and all of them. But it seems to be they could make a love story out of it because Doomhammer was talking to some girl and it seemed like a big connection, like he was going to go through the portal first and she was going to follow back and things like that. So, I mean, I'm not really sure if it'll follow the lore like it needs to be this bloodshed, but if they try to make a love story out of it, it's not for me.
And see, it's kind of hard to do it that way as well because if they did a love story of it, I mean that's probably going to make it to where that movie is just going to fall flat on its face. I don't think any Warcraft people are going to go in and really look forward to it being like a love story. Um, and then also I heard whether or not it's going to follow along following whether it be the Horde or the Alliance at the time. I'm I'm kind of curious on how they're going to follow that because how are they going to figure out which people we would rather follow. Like I personally would rather follow Horde because I played
Hmm.
Horde. But then again, you have people who just despise the Horde and they don't like anything about it and they'd rather follow the Alliance. So if you have a movie that follows an entirely one faction, it's going to make people who were fans of the other faction
Right.
not even want to watch it at all.
Right. Yeah. So that gets like to my next point. They released two footage clips so far of what's going on in the movie, and the first one is the Alliance one, and what it is it's a griffin flying over Stormwind. It's got a 360-degree view around it. That's all it is. Just a griffin flying over Stormwind. So, what does that give you a perspective of the Alliance? Where are they trying to show off just this prestigious city? Or what's going on? You know?
Well, I kind of feel like at that point where you kind of talked about where they're going to have it when the orcs first attack, I'm thinking what they're doing in that beginning. What I kind of get off that, like trying to look into it, but not too much. I'm basically seeing, this big majestic city that's, not torn over by war. There's no soldiers really at there worrying about anything. Um, I feel like they're showing the city as a like a peacetime type city.
Hmm.
Um, Something that's not war torn. It's not worrying about war at the time, which I feel though will play into the story of it going into war.
Right, right. You're totally right because if they're basing it off the pre-invasion of Azeroth, Stormwind gets destroyed when the orcs invade, actually. So everyone has to go to Lordaeron, and that's like the main city. And then after Stormwind's destroyed, they go take it back, but then Lordaeron gets destroyed by the plague, etc. Now, second point. On the second footage, it is Gul'dan standing at the dark portal, rattling up the or rallying up the orcs to push through. Now, you would think that's kind of like maybe they're just centralizing it because it's Warlords of Draenor and everybody knows Gul'dan and kind of the centralized story of it, but that's where
Hmm.
it just focuses on, or is it going to be more about this horde invasion into this calm Azeroth, or is it going to be this bloodshed? Like, I'm just not really sure if they're going to make it a bloodshed, or is it just this peaceful deal? So,
See, I'm thinking if you look at it and you put these two trailers together, where you talked about him rallying the orcs, and then you have the other one that is a peaceful city of just a griffin flying over it. There's not war torn. It's still in one piece, no issues.
hmm.
If you put these trailers and just think of it as this is happening at the same time, you have just someone on a griffin or just a griffin, just flying, not just over the city that has no issues. But then at the same exact time, you have a warlord that is rallying his troops to go in and literally destroy the city, like if they follow how he ends up doing. Which if they're wanting to play into it, I mean that's there's really no way around it.
Hmm.
Having it be just a bloodshed turning into a war, basically starting a Lord of the Rings trilogy type thing. Um, I don't see it really going any other way, and if they do, I don't know how or what other way they're going to go. Um, if this is happening at the same time, I mean it's there's really no other way it can go besides these orcs attacking Stormwind and
Hmm.
really
That's my point.
just pillaging it like they did.
Right. That's what I was meaning by it. Like, I didn't understand like they did this big rally and the thing, but then there's just like I don't want to go through the portal without you going when Doomhammer's talking to his girlfriend or whatever. It's just like, is it really gonna be about this compassionate deal or throughout like this war, or is it just gonna be complete bloodshed? So, uh, all right.
Which I think that they'll kind of touch on, but I don't think it's going to be a major plot line. I think
Yeah.
it's just going to be like a side branch off of the plot, I guess, but nothing. I hope it's not anything major, like it's taking up half of it, like Pearl Harbor.
Mhm.
Pearl
Mhm.
Harbor is three-quarters of it was a love story.
Right. So, what do you think the locations are going to be during the movie? Of course, we got Stormwind's going to be a major one, and we got the Black Morass. That's where everything's where the Dark Portal is before it's called the Blasted Lands. So,
Hmm.
what all do you think is going to be included?
Um, you said the main two spots. I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I don't think it would really be a good movie if they only had those two locations and them literally going into Stormwind and just pillaging it, and then it shows them leaving Stormwind and that being the end of it. it's kind of curious on where they're going to go from this. Um, they're going to be, I would imagine so, attacking Stormwind. Now, the major plot line I do have a general idea of from World of Warcraft. Now, you probably know the inners of what happens, whether it be during Stormwind's, fall or around that time, whether it be a little bit before, or a little bit after. That seems like it's going to be a better approach would be to play into things that's happening a little bit before it, during, and then a little bit after, and then maybe them getting into the next major city that they make their capital, right at the end of the movie, and then having it play into that one going into like the second, hopefully. And I also just want to touch on we Steven's having a little bit of internet issues. He does live out of town. I know he's here, but we just can't see him, so he's just not touching on this because World of Warcraft is not his suit, as he explained. But back to the plot line, you probably would want to explain a little bit more of what happens, before, during, and a
Yeah.
little bit after the whole Stormwind.
Yeah. So, I mean, in my opinion, what'll happen is Gul'dan and the orcs will invade Azeroth, which already seems to be a given. Stormwind will get destroyed. Everybody will have to move to Lordaeron. There'll be this huge fight between the orcs and the humans on Azeroth. I don't think it'll get to the point where we see Arthas purging the Scourge and say Kel'Thuzad coming into play and Naxxramas coming into play because I think there's like 10 or 5 years where Kel'Thuzad has to travel to
Mm-hmm.
Northrend to reach the Lich King because when the Burning Legion invades Azeroth or talks to Azeroth, Ner'zhul is actually the Lich King and he was an orc leader. So Ner'zhul has to go through the portal and then get banished by the Lich King and all this. So I don't think it'll go that far. I think it'll just be a knockdown, drag out fight of humans and orcs. I don't even think we'll see any Ragnaros or things like
Mm.
that come into
No,
play
because I
because
mean,
he
if you
has to be
if you think
summoned.
about it,
He has to be summoned
yeah.
into the realm. So
Because I mean, if you really think about it, where basically the time between all this stuff happening, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, basically the time in between all of these expansions for World of Warcraft, if they try to combine, two, maybe even three tops expansions all into one, we're either looking at like a 5 hour movie or one that's going to cut out pieces that are very important and it's just going to say, it's basically going to put up a panel that says 5 years later. And that's horrible
yeah,
for a movie to do. I mean, if you don't stop it at
yeah,
that point and do like a sequel like The Lord of the Rings,
mhm,
I mean, I don't
can't
really
do
know
it.
how you can make a movie like that successful. So,
Yeah, it's just not possible. That's what I was saying. They either have to get it right during the invasion and it's just a crazy fight. Now I could see at the end of the movie there be something like you see out of the sky the little ember things come down, the
hmm,
Burning Legion starting to invade, kind of like in Warcraft
yeah, to
3.
leave a cliffhanger, of course.
But do they really take another one? Because the movie comes out next summer, 2016, I believe.
Hmm.
Anyway, um,
Somewhere around that time, it's not set in stone, but that's when they're shooting for.
yeah, yeah, that's true. So, last but not least, let's talk about the cast. Who's gonna be playing in this movie? Is it a big name or is it just Blizzard artists? Like, I don't know.
Honestly, with that one, it's a little bit tough. I don't think that. I mean, you got to have people who portray, like, I mean, whenever, like, for example, the new Terminator that
Yeah.
came out. I mean, you have Arnold Schwarzenegger being the Terminator, and he just, as a person with his size, his muscularity, he just portrays someone of, a very tough character. If
Right.
you've got basically someone's face plastered onto a body that doesn't look like theirs, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not going to be very convincing. Like my face on a huge person that's like 6'4" and like very
Yeah.
muscular. I mean, it's not very convincing. So I mean, I feel as though I mean the battle might be able to have your regular computer generated things like you see in Lord of the Rings in the
Yeah.
second one,
Oh yeah.
but when the characters are talking, I mean, I don't think it needs to be animated. It needs to be at least some sort of
Yeah.
human in it.
Right.
So I mean, I don't even want to. I don't even know where we're going to begin on who can play who.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know about you, but do you know any actors that are muscular and look like orcs? Because I mean, I
I
don't know
mean,
any, but
not off the top of my head. I guess they could put what Dwayne Johnson somewhere in there, make it The Rock, make him some kind of orc or something. But
I mean, yeah, you got to have muscular people
I
because I mean, every single thing is like that.
I I just don't want it to be like one of those movies where I know technology and things are different now that all they can do, but Street Fighter when it came out in the 90s and Mr. Bison, Mr. Bison's is he's at the top right hand side of the screen. That's Mr. Bison from Street Fighter. It's a big, huge, buff guy, evil guy, and in the movie they got this like skinny runt to play Mr. Bison. That was not even, just like
Yeah, I mean,
scary
you
at
can't
all.
really take it seriously. Like you're looking at it and you're just like,
It's like getting like Nicolas Cage to play like, the Hulk or something.
yeah,
Well,
it's something that can't be taken seriously.
yeah, yeah.
So, with that being the last one, we'll go ahead and move into our last topic before a breakdown at the end. The next one, Steven said in the beginning, is going to be revolving around like the Windows 10 update that's going to be coming out. What all things we're going to be getting back and new with the Windows 10. Also, how this is going to play into other Microsoft devices such as the Xbox One. Um, First one we'll kind of break down are some of the new things that are going towards this, which I'll probably name off a couple, and then we'll let Steven and Seth talk about it. So the first one that we really found was the most popular is the Start menu returning, which if many of you use Windows 7 or Windows 8, you have the regular dashboard you go to, and that is your, I guess, quote unquote start menu. They're bringing back the all app options. They're bringing back the standby and power and everything at the top like you were used to in the Windows 8 that everyone really loved and hated when it was gone. Um, Seth and Steven, you guys are on computers quite often. Steven, whether it be doing this or at school sometimes, and then Seth, of course, you're an accountant. So I don't know if you guys use Windows 7 and Windows 8 and the new one after so, but what do you really think that the start menu is going to be bringing back and what's so great about having the start menu back?
Is Steven here?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I'm here. Uh, I've actually skipped Windows 7 completely. I've done XP, Vista, and 8. And 8 was just, it made me so angry because as a person who deals with technology and a person who knows with technology a little bit, of course, I'm always getting calls from parents and other older relatives, grandparents. Hey, can you help me do this? Can you help me run this? And with Windows 8, it's so counterintuitive to anything because the majority of my family members and other people who have asked me have used Windows, whether it be back with 97, 98 or XP, but they've used it and they know kind of how it goes. They know the basics of Windows. And with the start menu replacing the start or the start page replacing the start menu, a lot of them got completely and totally lost. And I was right there because along with that, everything in Windows 8 was designed to be touch.
Mhm.
And unless you go out and specifically buy a touchscreen computer or buy a tablet or a one, you're probably not going to have a touchscreen on your computer. So it just made everybody like so screwed up when they were trying to do anything that they were used to doing. It was like learning an entirely new OS.
Mhm. Right. I
Mm,
agree. Like, when I first got my Windows 8, I was like, nah, this ain't happening. Or when I first saw Windows 8, I was like, this ain't happening. It's not like the same deal. You can't function through everything, but you really can, in a sense. Like, I know you don't have the same start menu, but everything, it takes 2 more seconds to find everything. And from my experience, I don't know about at your job, Eric, and things like that yet. Nobody, I don't think, would ever switch to anything other than Windows XP 2000, whatever it's called, or Windows 7 like that, because I think a lot of systems would have to relocate all of their files in a different way. Now, I don't really know how it works in that sense, but I think bringing back the old school stuff is very sufficient.
Yeah,
hmm
I'll
And um, going into that as well, I mean, with this new one, it is bringing back a lot of the old things that everyone was really used to. Like when I first got my laptop I had in college, it came with the fresh Windows 7, which of course, like Steven said, it was a touchpad or a touchscreen laptop. So I could really do everything I needed to, whether it be going from typing something to going to an app to browsing a web page. Really didn't have to do much work. It really made everything simple. With these two new things, I mean, there's actually a couple things that we're going to break down real fast that we're getting that are new with the Windows 10 that's going to make everything a lot easier is that as well. First one, that's a major one, being the Cortana, which I don't know if a lot of you heard on the Windows XP phones, was the voice assist um, of the Apple iPhone Siri. It was the compatible or the comparable one for the Windows phones. It's a voice assist. Whenever you have it on this new system, you can voice launch everything, whether it be going to your notifications, going to anything that you really want to go to. You can voice launch that app. Um, that's really something new for computers and a lot of things. So I don't know if you guys, I know you guys both have not had Windows XP phones, and neither have I.
Mhm.
But as two guys, and also as I did have Siri, what do you think this really brings to these platforms that it's going to, both the Xbox tablet and the computer?
Well, I think
Well,
it's a great idea, honestly, because I think for someone that plays with two monitors or three monitors and you have a voice command that you could tell, hit like whatever, make it as a macro that to push to talk for Siri or whatever it's called, Cortana deal. But like bring up this and you don't have to tab out and like do the actual functions. You could be like bring up Internet Explorer, bring up Google Chrome, go to youtube.com. It's already there. Or find even in businesses, this could be something that businesses are trying to do and they're trying to get a business approach on this product or upgrading to Windows 10. So you could say bring up General Ledger 2006 or go to K Drive, do this, do that, and then bring up this or things like that. I think that's very functional.
And then Stephen as well, probably you can touch on this as well. I mean, that would probably make um, things in the classroom as well a lot easier for kids as well. Of going through saving things in high school before some of these things came out,
Hmm.
you had to go through four different folders to really find something, which that Cortana could eliminate. Do you think that would really make a big difference in the classroom?
I believe that at least students' personal computers, it would be something pretty beneficial because it does kind of eliminate the searching. Oh, did I put it in this folder? Oh no, I have no idea where I've put any of this stuff. It's
Hmm.
just it cuts down on a lot of the, I guess, panic. But from a classroom perspective, like have a classroom or within computers, and you've got kids trying to pull up stuff all the time, and you're saying, "Hey, Cortana, do this. Hey, Cortana, do that." I just think that that's going to be something that doesn't see as much use. I can honestly say I feel people come in and completely disabling Cortana and then locking the students out of that portion of the system because it would be something that is more a bother in
A
a
disruption.
disruption in a general classroom setting.
Yeah.
Uh, Cortana. I mean, I love Siri. I love to give her a hard time because every time I say something, she comes up with something completely different. But I love using Siri uh, because it does kind of make it more intuitive. You don't actually have to find an app. You can say, "Hey, just open this app for me,"
Right.
and she'll do it. Or open this app. Well, you don't actually have that app anymore. Well, then go to the App Store and help me download it.
Hmm.
Right.
Now, with that one being said, we'll talk about some of these apps that are actually being improved. They are improving the Xbox app, which was almost exclusive. Initially, when they released it, it was on the iPad and the iPhone and everything. You can get and you can control your Xbox through it, whether it be launching apps, using it as a controller when you're too lazy to turn your own controller on. That is something that's not new, but they are improving it to make it a lot better to use. One that's a big one is called the Project Spartan. This is one that I didn't hear about until I really researched this, and I know that you guys have probably not heard about it, and I know a lot of people haven't heard about it. This is what Microsoft is taking and replacing the old Internet Explorer with. It's called Project Spartan. It's a new browser. It's more user friendly for the Windows 10 update. It does take the new Action Center they're going to be taking, which shows all your notifications. It also is going to be one of the universal apps that's overall platforms. Um, it also comes with an improved multitasking, both in Windows 10 and the app, which they're now expanding to having four different panels on the screen instead of just separating them into two. Um, what do you guys really think that that's going to mean for for this update, bringing in Project Spartan to really revamp the Internet Explorer and give a new browser a chance to actually compete with Google Chrome. In all honesty.
I think it's a good
Well,
idea. Go ahead.
yeah, Internet Explorer has been basically dead since uh, the advent of Firefox. I mean, once Firefox placed Netscape back in the early 2000s, late 90s, there was really no hope for Internet Explorer, and they just Microsoft, in my mind, just kept putting off the inevitable. Oh well, and they were never innovating. They were always playing catch up. They would see what somebody else had done, and then they'd go, "Oh yeah, we need to do that. Oh yeah, we need to pick up this." And they've been playing catch up for so long. I think it's nice and refreshing to see a first party browser that might actually be worth using.
I don't know. That could go two ways, honestly. If you think the way in the gaming ways have came about, everybody liked the old school ways back in the day, and then they came out with new ways of games come out, new different things that appeal. They would think would appeal to the audience, but then it got too creative, too much stuff going on, and then now everybody wants the old school stuff back. You know, so
Mhm.
it could get to the point where they stretch it, because I know a lot of technology is just going outrageous. They might use that to their advantage. It might bring them down, and everybody want to go back to just their standard uh, browser. So we'll see.
Yeah. Now there's two more things I want to throw in there about Windows 10 before I go to the next topic, which is going to be very interesting for me and probably both of these gentlemen as well. So Office apps, which is not really going to make a big difference for, well, it might for Stephen in the classroom, and it might also for you in accounting. The new Office apps are now going to be touch supportive, which is going to give you more options in finding things and not having to actually use your keyboard, which also makes it easier for this a new thing coming out with it called Continuum. Basically, if you have what everybody's using now are these tablet computers, which are tablets that come with a keyboard and a mouse. If you're on that and you have a mouse and a keyboard plugged in, you are currently on like a quote unquote desktop running of all the apps. You can be typing up a paper and everything in Office Word. You unplug the keyboard and the mouse. It continues onto the tablet version, and then you can then use your tablet to continue writing the paper under Continuum, which is a very interesting thing. Not really much to expand on that except for the fact that it's going to make basically college kids' lives 200% easier for being able to do multiple things and having to go from sitting down at a desk in a library from writing things on a computer to picking up your tablet and walking it back to your dorm and writing it in your dorm instead. So we've all been to college. We know what that feels like. So that's something you guys can touch on real fast before we go to the next information.
Well, I see it being very beneficial, but I use Excel every day, like literally all the time. Now, the thing with Excel, it it's not very functional if you would use touchscreen for that. Um, the compatibility of taking off the keyboard and doing things like that and then moving around is fine, but there's so many macros that you have to have for your keyboard. Like, you got Control Shift G over format your cells and your V lookups and things like that. There's too many reference point where you need the keyboard uh, for those functions. Steven.
Well, that's another thing. Uh, that's one of those where I just kind of look at it. I am. I love. I currently have an iPad. I have mostly Apple products. I have an iPad, but I also have Windows installed on my Mac, and I also have a Windows tablet. And I love the idea of a tablet that's just a tablet. I like being able to pick up my iPad and just saying, okay, this is my tablet. I've got all the apps here. I've got it all laid out the way I want it to be. At no point does it become a desktop because that's something reaching up to swipe to change something is it's just always kind of bothered me because it's so counterintuitive to the way that I learned how to use computers.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where everybody hates change. Change is always hard for people to process and tolerate.
Hmm.
So this is one of those things. It may be beneficial for somebody. I'm always going to go back to the traditional keyboard and mouse.
Hmm.
Yep. Well, with that being said as well, we'll go to the next topic of this Windows 10, which, as you know, Xbox, one of its prized things everyone knows it for are the Xboxes. With this new Windows 10 update, they will be moving that update onto the Xbox One as well, which is going to bring a lot of things back to this Xbox. Um, a big thing from E3 that everyone was very excited for, myself included, and I know Steven is as well, is the backwards compatibility. Um, that's a big thing that everyone really looked for whenever it was announced it was not coming on the Xbox One when I got it. I was very disappointed because it basically put me out of 60 games that I will more than likely no longer ever play, and so I don't have any more 360 games at this point until I'm starting to build my collection for this backwards compatibility. That's one thing that they're bringing with this new update, and another one as well are Xbox mods, which in a PC sense, this is great because you get all of the mods that anyone would have on a PC, whether it be for Fallout or anything that you see in a general um, a modding sense. So it's really expanding the Xbox One's capabilities in a general sense between being able to have an emulator of a 360 with a full 360 dashboard inside your Xbox One to being able to do almost a mod that someone does on a PC. You can take it from them and use it on your Xbox One now, and then also going into um, all this continuum features in the Spartan browser and everything. So it's really expanding Xbox's capabilities. So that'll be the last thing that we let these guys touch up on before we say our goodbyes. So what do you guys really feel that this update is going to do for the Xbox One, bringing in a new fan base and doing things for the current fan base?
Yeah, like you were
I think
talking about, bringing in the new fan base, bringing back the old games is just what's going to really make this stand out and bring so many people back to the community. Going back and being able to play Modern Warfare 2 or Gears of War 1, whether mastering that, but just old school games that people love that they're going to get to feel that revamp and be able to play it again and not have to hook up the 360 and do this and that and feel like they're out of money. And the compatibility with the Windows thing to the Xbox, doing new mods and things like that is what's also really going to make it stand out pretty well. So,
yeah, I think a lot of this is going to people who were hesitant because of the loss of every Xbox 360 game. Depending on the catalog, and they've said that it's going to be kind of limited starting out. Uh, but depending on the catalog, and if they do end up bringing all the Call of Duties back and all of these other games back, I can see there being a pretty big surge in Xbox One sales because people do want to play, or people who play Xbox do want to play the new Halo game. They do want to play potentially the new Gears game, but they didn't have a reason to upgrade at this point. I know immediately after E3, after Xbox One and PS4 were announced, people were basically jumping ship saying, well, not buying an Xbone because they're just the worst. I'm going to go ahead and get a PS4 because they absolutely killed it. And PS4 has had a very comfortable lead coming up to this point. But in the wake of all these announcements, in the wake of Phil Spencer taking over Xbox and basically turning around and saying, this is about game.
mhm.
This is your satellite box. This is a game console. I feel like a lot of people are going to see this as a show of goodwill and then are going to jump in and say, yeah, I like my Xbox. I can
Right.
roll with this.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. Yep. And I don't know if I'm sure everyone already knows, but this Windows 10 update and as well as the Xbox update is coming out in November. I'm sure everyone that knows about it and has probably listened to what I've said has probably become a little bit more excited about it from the Xbox capabilities they're going to be releasing as well as on the computer and all other platforms. So what I want to do before I pass it over to Seth and Steven, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. We're going to be doing this every single week. Planning on every single Wednesday at 9. So if you guys want to come back, that'd be great. Go ahead and hit the follow button. As soon as we go ahead and start up, it will tell you whenever we're going live.
Right, like he was saying, the stream will actually start between 10 to 15 minutes early, uh, right around 8:45 to 8:50 every Wednesday. And we also will be having a fourth attendant next week, hopefully. Hyperize will be joining us. We also have a Twitter and a YouTube that's going to be going up. And we'd appreciate subscribers, followers, and also some comments of what kind of topics that we need to talk about, what you would like to see in our stream, see improvements, what you like about it. So, Steven?
Yeah, especially the comments. A big thing, just trying to get this off the ground, trying to get this started. Uh, it's feedback. I know a lot of people watching this right now know Eric and I personally, and or through games, and just comments. What did we do all right? What did we do poorly? And just word of mouth. If you think that if it would be something that somebody else would enjoy watching, tell them. Let them know
Yep.
because this is trying to do this every Wednesday about the same time. We're trying to do it every week, every Wednesday about the same time. There were some technical difficulties, a little bit of stuff going on yesterday, so we couldn't get on yesterday. But that's kind of what we're planning on doing. And in addition to that, we're also trying to put this up on YouTube. Uh, it'll of course be on video on demand for 2 weeks, but we're also trying to have a permanent YouTube, and the URL is in the bottom right for our Twitter, and then or our handle is in the bottom right for our Twitter. Nope, got that backwards. That's what happens when power goes out and you can't see anything. Uh, Twitter's in the top right. The URL for our YouTube is in the bottom right. Uh, just spread the word. Let people know if you liked it. Whatever. Thanks for coming out and watching.
Yep. Thank you. And I will be on here next week. So hope to see some of you and some of your friends back.
Right. All right. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Later.